Well, hey guys, how you doing there? So this is something a little special that I've been kind of planning for a long time. And some of you may have seen that I did something like an about me kind of couple of videos. That was just kind of like where I came from, how it got started, how I got started, the kind of what I went through, some personal stuff, all that kind of. This is kind of a spin-off of that. This is basically how the studio got started. These are the kind of videos, I don't know about you guys, that I kind of look forward to because I always want to see like what are they thinking when they start a studio? What is their like big game plan? And for me, I mean, there's no major game plan. I'm going to take you back kind of to the beginning, um, just a minute. But this is something that's just been very, very important to me for a very long time, as far back as I can remember. Now, I am going to kind of just do a really quick, brief summary of kind of like where I came from as a creator person. So many years ago, many years ago, when I was just in the single digits, so a very young little kid, that's when I actually really started falling in love with cartoons and comic books. Not really comics, but more cartoons. My dad would play on the wall. We used to have a projector, and it was the coolest. I thought it was the coolest thing, but he would have this projector and play the movies up on the wall. The first movie I ever saw with him was Planet of the Apes, the original one, and that was just the coolest thing. But then he started playing some more movies, with those big old reels, that would spin. I mean, you don't have to crank it yourself, but it was just so cool. But one of the things that I saw, it was a silly symphony, and I absolutely fell in love right then and there. And I'm like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's what I want to come up with. I want to create my own stories. I want to have my own characters, kind of build my own world. And from that day on, I've really kind of taught myself how to draw. Let's fast forward a little bit. So now we were in the high school, or I'm in high school, and um, I entered an art contest. Actually, I did. My teacher did. He entered me into an art contest, Mr. Joe Tobin, and I loved him for doing this. It was so great because someone else other than my family, let's keep in mind here, this is, my son wants to be an artist. Eh, you know, they were very, very hesitant about it, but they also saw that I had a lot of passion and that I was drawing anyway, that I love drawing and coloring and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. My teacher saw the same thing in me. And so I drew this picture. I forgot what I think it was. Prophet, I think it was from Image Comics, um, and my teacher was kind of upset that because this was an art contest and it was for the whole state of Illinois, and unfortunately, I did not win. I was disqualified. I know, right? Um, and that's okay. Being disqualified is fine, but you're never going to guess who actually won. So the reason I was disqualified was because I was told that I drew a comic book character, so it's not my own creation, it's not my own character. So that's why, it's a character that already exists. So that's why I was disqualified. We get to the actual location where everything took place, the ribbons, the first, second, third place. I think it was a mall, I think, or something similar to that anyway. And we see who won first place, and it was somebody who drew the picture of the crow. Yeah, I'm not talking like a quack, quack. I'm not talking like that kind of crow. I'm talking like the movie, The Crow. So, I mean, of course, I was upset. I was kind of like, oh, I'm never going to win. I'm not going to do this. It's not going to be good, blah, blah, blah. My teacher was like, what is going on? He was not happy. I mean, he was pretty ticked off. Um, so let's fast forward just a little bit further. Like I said, I'm going to just do a little bit of summary of before kind of going into now because it all does make sense once you put it all together. So let's fast forward now. So now out of high school, now I'm in college, a little bit of college, and I'm taking this art course and I'm learning how to draw things, basically still life. To me, it wasn't the greatest thing. I actually thought it was really boring. Just because. And you had to be very quiet, very silent. That's not me. You know, I'm not that kind of a quiet person. Especially when I'm creating. I want to get, let's get that fun, happy stuff moving, and kind of gets the blood going, gets your brain moving. At least that's what I think. Sometimes. But I'm taking this course and I'm like, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to do this kind of stuff. I want to do comic books. Now, when I was in high school, I actually, for our junior high, I just started learning about comic books and who the characters were. Of course, I knew all the main ones, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. Of course, I knew them, but I started learning more of the characters, more about a lot of the characters that were out, around then. This is like the early 90s. And that's when I started collecting. And I fell in love and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to draw comic books. I want to put my art into comics and just start creating these amazing characters and stories. So let's fast forward just a little bit more. So I get into the comic book industry. It took me a long time to get there, but I finally got there. And I was at my very first convention. Actually, we're going to rewind just a little bit because this is a very important part. We're going to rewind just a little bit. So my first convention that I went to, I was actually asking some of the artists and professionals, how did you get in? How do you get a table? How can I sit on that side of the table? And the first thing out of their mouth basically was, you got to be a professional. You have to physically work in the industry in order to sit on this side of the table and sell your stuff. I'm thinking, okay, now we can fast forward a little bit. So I worked my butt off to get on that side of the table. I did a comic book for free, the whole thing. I cut back cover to cover, including a variant cover. Started working on the second issue for free because I knew what that company was doing is they were actually getting me to the status that I wanted to get it, and that's the professional status, because the books were coming out, and it was a professional company. So I I started doing some more research with comic books, and I can talk to this person, I can go here, I can go here. I'm going to present to this. I'm going to go here. I even had a comic book that I created called Smiley vs. Bone. So Bone, the little cute little character, the little cartoon character that Jeff Smith did, yeah, that Bone. Super super cute. I still have the original pages. Smiley was that little button from Evil Ernie. Yeah, I mean, weird combination, but this is something that I came up with that I just thought would be really fun to do. So I drew all the pages. First time, actually, one of the first 5 times, I think, going to Chicago Comic-Con before it became Wizard, I took all these original pages. I went over to Chaos Comics, and I had all the guys look at everything, including Brian Polito, because he, of course, was there. And they all signed one of the pages that had big old smiley on the page and with a couple of the Bone characters. And I mean, it was really, I loved it. It was great. That gave me the sense of, okay, I can do this now. I'm going to do this. And it was the greatest feeling. So, of course, that whole entire day when I'm waiting in line, I'm sitting there and I'm drawing. I get home, I'm drawing. We go back to convention, I'm drawing. That's all I'm doing this whole entire time is I'm physically drawing. And fast forward a little bit again. Now that I'm in the industry, it's been a few years now, and I'm getting kind of burnt out from going all the conventions. And doing 40 conventions in 1 year and doing that continuously for 5, 6, 7 years, that kind of beats up a little bit. You're never home. You miss out on a lot of things with your friends and family. I mean, was kind of a big thing. Our dog started kind of forgetting who we were. Brandon went with me all the time. He never did anything in the comic industry, but he helped me out. He was my support. So he did probably more than he actually knows when it comes to support. But we would go out all over the country and we would drive to all the shows. One convention, I woke up. We were actually at MegaCon. It's just about 6, 7 years ago, approximately. And I just sat up and I said, I want to start my own animation studio. He looks over to me and says, what? He's still asleep. We're just about to wake up because we have to get up and go to the convention. He's like, what? And I said, I want to start my own animation studio. Okay. And then he just kind of nods off for like a few more minutes. So I'm all excited. And I said, this is what I'm going to make my own animation studio. In the comic world, I was doing stuff. Of course, I loved it. It was great, but I didn't have my own voice. That's where the problem was kind of coming in. All the prints and everything that I was doing with the other artists, you know, I loved doing them, but they weren't my own characters. I didn't have my own voice, and I just thought it was that time for me to put myself out there and jump the line and say this is what I'm going to do. So at MegaCon that entire weekend, of course, I was in the greatest mood I can be, very excited. We went to Disney, duh. We went to Disney World, and I was like, it was like the Green Lantern. It's like the energy was just like pouring into me as we're walking the Magic Kingdom in downtown Disney at the time before it became Disney Springs. You know, we're all over the place. You know, I'm just like so filled with all this emotion, good, you know, good emotion. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm doing. Okay. So then we started buying books. We bought a couple of books at Disney. Come on, they're expensive. But we bought a couple of books at Disney, some art books and sketches and stuff like that. But then we also went to the bookstore and I started buying up some books there, cartooning. Um, I bought some Garfield stuff. Okay, it's not Disney, but it's still cartooning. But there's a lot of things, a lot of books that I bought just kind of reading up on how to start your own business, how to do your own animation studio, how to draw in cartooning. At this point in time, it's probably been about 20-ish years that I haven't put a pencil in my hand. It's been since high school. Okay. I graduated high school. Oh my God, this is gonna be so weird to say. 25 years ago. So it's been about probably about 20 years at that time that I didn't draw anything. I've been coloring. That's okay. But I always had my mind was always moving and moving and moving to create my own stuff. So we get back home and it's the same kind of thing. I'm looking for books. I'm going online, you know, looking, getting these bios, reading all this stuff, reading up all this stuff. There was even a PBS special about Walt Disney, which to me I thought it was really good. I personally, so I mean, I read that, I watched that religiously, just because there was a lot of great information in there. But then I saw some other stuff as well, some other like books and articles and magazines and just all of that. I was just collecting. So I sat back and I said to myself, okay, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Who do I know who can maybe kind of pivot or jumpstart kind of me where to go? Well, I didn't have anybody. Um, I just didn't. There were a couple of people who I knew who were one was an executive for Disney and for just TV in general. So I asked him a couple of questions, and he says, "Well, you know, I got this friend of mine who he might be right up your alley. You know, you might want to talk to him." And I said, "Okay." He said his name is Rick Farmelo, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I kind of remember I knew the name. Then he started saying, "Well, Rick used to work. He used to work for Disney." And he still does actually. But he used at the time it was used to work for Disney, feature animation. He did Abu in Aladdin. He did Scuttle in Little Mermaid, and there were a few other projects he named off. And I'm just like, oh my god, this guy actually worked on the movies that I grew up with. Holy cow! Yeah, this is the person to talk to. And so I started chatting with him, and he was telling me what I'm trying to do is going to be very difficult, and it is. He says, trying to do animation the way that I wanted to do it, because I told myself I want to do cell animation. That's it, cell animation. It's not dead. It's just nobody uses it anymore. No one, because it's very expensive, and you have to have just an army of people to work with you. And he says, to do it, you can definitely do it. And he's like, Jeff, I want to help you. I'm like, I mean, I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it's still, I mean, I still get goosebumps talking about it because I'm still friends with him and we still kind of chat here and there. And he does work with me on a couple of things every so often. But it's someone that I can go to that I can ask questions about. And that's the biggest thing. And I think that's why I figured out that that's why California is the way that a lot of people see that it is. It's always parties and get-togethers and galas and galas, whatever you want to call it. Always. That's because you want to be surrounded by the people that you work with that all have the same kind of like that you have. I get that now because it's not just what job I can get here, what job. Yeah, a lot of it is because of that. But for me, it's like, who can I talk to here? Who can I talk to there? And unfortunately, I don't have that. Being here in the Midwest, this is not the mecca of entertainment, unfortunately. But I want to open up my studio here. This is another thing I was thinking about. I want to open up my studio here because I want to show people you don't have to be in Hollywood in order to do what you love, especially in the entertainment business. You don't have to. Yes, that's where a lot of people are. If you ever have to get out there, it's called flying. You could drive it. We have a few times, or you can take a train. There's always a way to get out there. And if you need to talk to someone real quick, just like this, you can go on Zoom. Excuse me. You can go on Zoom. You can go on Facebook. You can go Skype. I mean, there's so many ways to get in contact with people now. It's awesome. It's fantastic. So it can happen. So that's why I told myself, I'm like, well, this is it. Really good digging in and doing the research that's kind of the hardest thing for me. Really, the number one hardest thing is actually trying to come up with funds. Now, that's something that nobody can tell me anything about because it's all different for everybody. It's all different. There are some people who've told me, I've talked to some people who do own some studios out in California. Some of the people have said, you just do any job you can. Any job you can. To get that money coming in, you just do any job you can. Well, okay. However, the only problem with that is, unfortunately, you still have to find the people and they're going to want to get paid, which absolutely. So that's why I'm still putting together my team. I've had a few different animators that I was working with, but unfortunately, one, they just lost interest. Two, they found other jobs in the animation business. Awesome. Three, they just disappeared off the face of the earth. Don't know what happened. There's like two people that just disappeared off the face of the earth. I don't even know. Their Facebook is gone, their Twitter, their email, everything. It's just completely gone. Very, very, very strange. But that's why I'm building my team. And that's why it's taken me a long time because, one, I just don't have the funds. I just don't have the capital in order to get it out there. Now I'm trying. Hold that thought for 1 second, guys.